Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for New Ulm. It is 4:30 on Thursday, January 30th, 2025. First item on the agenda is to introduce and welcome our new member, Bill Turnblad. And I'd like everyone please to go around the table and introduce yourself. I'll start with Joe.
Joe Schatsko.
Michelle Selner.
Larry Mack.
Bobby Four.
Linda Beck.
And I'm Ann Earl.
Steve Schnurberg.
And I'm John Nisley.
And way in the back, I have. Welcome.
Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is the election of officers for 2025. I'd like to call for,
You're looking for nominations?
I would like to call for a nomination.
I'd like to nominate Ann Earl for chair if she's willing to accept.
I would. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
Nominate Larry Mack as vice chair,
Okay.
if he's willing.
I'm willing.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Linda Beck for secretary?
Okay, I'm willing.
Okay. I have a slate of officers. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations?
No.
Are there any further nominations? If not, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you and welcome. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the November 21st, 2024 special meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions? If not,
I'll offer motion to approve the minutes from the November 21st, 2024 meeting.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion as a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. Thank you. This opens the public hearing portion of the meeting. The first item is Chad Oaks, John Gog, Rental Incorporated Conditional Use Permit. Staff report?
Okay. So the request for a conditional use permit is to allow the operation of an indoor commercial entertainment recreation land use on property that is zoned I-2, which is general industrial zoning district. The proposed business would include an axe throwing space, rage rooms, and a smash lab. The legal description of the property is Lot B of Lot 1 and Lot B2, Block 3 north of Center Street. Street address is 106 3rd North Street. The property location is north of 3rd North Street and west of North Front Street. And if you look at attachment 2 and 4 in your staff report, that shows the location of the property. Background information, the deadline for a decision on this matter is March 3rd, 2025. The land use designation for the property in our comprehensive plan is industrial. The surrounding land uses to the north, east, and south are industrial, and to the west it's industrial, and then on the other side of the railroad tracks it's parks and open space. Zoning designation for the property is I-2, which is general industrial district. Zoning to the north is I-2 and I-3, I-3 being limited industrial district. To the east and south it's I-2. The west, it is I-2 and R2, traditional neighborhood, single and two-family residence district, and that represents the park area carries a residential zoning classification. Current site use of the property is it's an office, computer repair, and Amazon service. To the north, we have office, storage, Snap Fitness, and Northside Garage. To the east, we have storage, single-family residences. To the south, we have office, single-family residences, and the CTE Center. And to the west, we have storage, the railroad, and then Miller Park. A notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and was published in the Journal on January 18th, 2025. Public comments in our staff report, we say none to date. We actually did receive an email, and the individual requested that I read this to the Planning Commission. It goes as follows. Greetings. My name is Molly Jacobs. My husband Josh and I and our 3 children live at 400 North Valley Street, which is just down the block from the building. We think the proposed recreational entertainment use of the building is a neat idea and would be a great addition to our community. We do have a couple of concerns, though, since we live so close. Our first concern is increased traffic. As of now, we have a fair amount of traffic due to nearby businesses and the storage units next door. This is really not a big deal and is expected, but since we do live on gravel and the road is kind of in a hidden area, we see a lot of people going way too fast, especially around the curve by our house. We are assuming this will happen more and are concerned about everybody's safety. Our second concern is noise. We are just wondering if the hours of operation will go into later evening. If so, we would just be concerned about noise and activity during those times. That is all. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts and for your consideration. Sincerely, the Jacobs family. Okay, I'll continue with the staff report then. As far as the description of the request, the purpose of the I-2 General Industrial District is to provide locations for a wide variety of more intense manufacturing and industrial land uses, which, because of the nature of the product or character of the activity, should be located in areas that will minimize their impact on neighboring and less intense residential, business, commercial, and industrial land uses. Indoor commercial entertainment is defined as an establishment providing completely enclosed recreation or entertainment activities. Accessory uses may include the preparation and serving of food or the sale of equipment related to the enclosed uses. Examples of indoor commercial entertainment businesses include bowling alleys, roller and ice skating rinks, billiard halls, swimming pools, theaters, and similar amusements. Indoor commercial entertainment uses do not include event centers or adult uses. The proposed use is allowed in the I-2 zoning district with a conditional use permit. The anticipated size of the use would be approximately 3,186 square feet. An accessory storage area would have 645 square feet. This use would share building space with at least one other business and possibly more. The proposed use will not have interior access to any other of the building spaces. So you would go into this use, but you would not have access to other parts of the building. This type of business would be a permitted use in the B2, B3, B4 zoning district, and is also a conditional use in the I-1 zoning district. The application provides the following information on the business. All business activities will take place within the building and will not impact the nearby area. Secondly, no exterior modifications will be made to the building. Third, the building is currently used for business purposes. 4, business parking would utilize shoulder, that would be street parking, as well as parking in the rear of the property with appropriate signage. 5, the use will provide a fun, engaging place for New Ulm residents to enjoy themselves while also providing a safe, controlled space to de-stress. The location of the entry door on 3rd North Street will likely generate on-street parking on 3rd North Street due to the distance to the parking area at the rear of the property. And if you look at some of the photographs in attachment 5, you can see where the entry door will be located. If the business was occupying a new building, the parking requirement would be approximately 10 spaces. That would be 1 space per 400 square feet of gross floor area. And then finally, any noise generated from the building would need to comply with the city's noise regulations found in section 808 of the city code. Considerations for application approval. In order to recommend approval of the permit, the commission will need to determine that the request complies with the review criteria found in section 2.4D4 of Appendix A of the city code. That's our zoning ordinance. This criteria can also be found on the findings of fact form. The Planning Commission and City Council must make an affirmative finding on all of the criteria that are listed in order to grant a conditional use permit. The applicant has the burden of proof to show that all of the criteria have been satisfied. Attachments include attachment 1 is the application and building layout. And John is showing the attachments on the video monitor. Attachment 2 is the site location map. Attachment 3 is the zoning map. Attachment 4 is the site map. And I would note that the building appears to be located on 100% of the property. So there really isn't any room for on-site parking. So it would have to be, it would not have, could be located on this property, have to be located on an adjoining property. Attachment 5 are ground level photographs. And there's the, I believe that's the door to the, currently the Amazon. No?
Nope, this is the door facing 3rd North.
The 3rd North, right. So they will be adding a new door on that side of the building. Attachment 6 is the staff completed findings of fact form. Staff has identified a number of conditions if the commission should recommend approval. The first is that the applicant, property owner, will pay the cost to record the permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, all business activities will take place within the existing building at 106 3rd North Street. 3, uses on the property shall comply with the city code noise restriction regulations found in section 808 of the city code. 4, hours of operation will generally be from 3 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. on weekends. And I might note that those hours of operation came from the applicant, Chad Hawkes. And then number 5, no exterior storage will be permitted on the property. And then 2 motions are provided, one to approve the request and one to deny the request. That would conclude the staff report.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions. Does Chad is here, so does anyone have questions for him? Chad, would you step up to the microphone? I have a few questions right now.
Good afternoon.
Would you say your name and address, please, business?
Chad Hawkes, 106 3rd Street North.
Thank you. I have a question about parking. And I do see that there is, and I'm familiar with the property, and I know there's a parking lot in the back, but that is not part of your property, is that correct? So that if there were people that wanted to park there, is that available other than,
So this back area is where we use currently for our Amazon vehicle
Okay.
parking. I actually just spoke to the owner before this, and we've come to an agreement that we could actually use the space adjoining or next to our
Okay.
location for parking if we needed to.
so primarily though you are totally relying on street parking? Is that,
So on-street parking plus we can use the back area as well.
okay. Okay. And then are you using the same entrance that you have now, or are you putting in a new entrance?
So at the front of the building, that will be the one that you just saw will be the entrance to this new business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the entrance to all your businesses or to your
currently.
unlimited, or your computer repair business.
Currently,
I'm
yes.
familiar with that, okay.
Yep. Yep.
So you're
And-
just shifting them to another door.
yes.
Then one of the other questions I have is rental. If I have a group and I want to come down and use it in the evening, do I need to have a separate permit to use, say, on a Sunday evening after 5 o'clock? Or are you not planning on doing rentals? I mean, it appears to me that it would be an ideal thing for somebody to come and,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we haven't really talked about that yet, but we're definitely open to doing that. And I'm not sure if we would need a permit. Or
what
not.
do we do in that case if they want?
Well, we're establishing hours of operation, so he would need to comply with those.
So
hours of
he has to stay within these hours for rental then, unless he comes back for another permit.
If that's what he chooses to do, or if the commission would choose to amend those hours at this time, that's another
Okay.
option.
So if I'm hearing correctly, Dave, we could set those today here, and if Chad would let us know what he wants for hours of operation, and
If you
And
wish to
just-
change them, yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If we did want to change those hours, because I think maybe it wasn't like, did we say till 5 on the weekend? I'm not sure.
It says from 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, we might want to adjust that just for Saturday for sure. We might want to go a little bit later than that, just right up front, just thinking about that.
So how late would you like to go?
I would say at least till 8 o'clock, give a little bit more hours on the weekend. I think that would be good. And can we adjust that as we go, or does it need to be?
No, this is, from what I understand, you adjust it now or you come back to change, to
Okay.
reapply for the conditional use. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the way things currently operate.
Okay, thank you.
So you want to amend that to a Saturday until 8 o'clock.
Could we please do that until 8 o'clock for sure at this time?
John, do you want to take care of the, okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to ask a bit about the noise generation. I mean, screaming and smashing and whacking things sounds fun, but there's a little bit of noise associated with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the office use that shares some of those same walls. Is that going to be an issue with?
Yeah, so to my understanding, I'm the only one in that building currently with Tech Unlimited. And
Okay.
so we would actually move our operations upstairs and really would not be affected by this at this time.
Okay.
Yep. And as far as the noise from either axe throwing or the smash rooms, I feel like it's on that other side of the building. So if they're smashing things, it's really, that sound isn't really going to go back the other way, especially the kind of room that we're going to build. I think we should be okay that way.
It's not real clear to me where within the building the various fun activities will be located. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah.
John, do you want to bring up the other image, please? of the building?
At least in that area, do you think, Chad? Or do you want
Yeah.
to pull up your plans?
Well, I'm just wondering if we can pull this up so I can show them this.
We could do this.
Is that an option?
Application. It was one of the, should have been one of the attachments.
Do we have it in there?
Oh.
I don't know that the site plan was in there, but we could have the guy from NewCat do the overhead monitor, if you wouldn't mind switching to that. Could you switch to this one right here? You have a minute? Yeah.
While he's working that, the line of questioning simply is,
Yeah.
what's located between surrounding properties and people within the building? Sound transmission might not be an issue, but it would be good for me to be able to see where things are located to
I'd be
better
happy to
judge
show you. I
that.
do have some floor plans I can bring up and try to show you that.
Okay.
So they're
Basically, his
tentative.
house.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
your house attached? Is that on the corner?
It's the
It
front
is, yeah.
part, yeah.
So if it's noisy, it's your problem too.
It's my problem, nobody else's,
Well,
right?
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
how many people do you think you'd have in attendance for, say, axe throwing or these various activities at a time? for a
Yeah, so,
group?
so we're starting with 5 lanes for the axe throwing, and we would have 2 smash rooms, and so we can have groups of. It's really hard to say, but like 3 to 5 per lane,
Okay.
and then I would say a group of, 3 to 10 for the smash rooms. They can kind of take turns going in there too.
Okay.
So anywhere between, how many would that be? I would say no more than 25 to 30 people at a time, at least to start with.
Okay.
I assume you already looked into insurance for this?
Excuse me?
You already looked into insurance for this?
You're step 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have a good waiver.
And as far as food, I'm assuming that you just have like the normal beverages, and am I coming in with
Yeah.
my bottle of pop or whatever?
Yeah, we're not going to go, full, grill, maybe pizzas and that sort of thing.
Okay. Are we ready to continue with the site? Not ready, okay.
Oh, sure. This is difficult. But, so this area, I don't know if you can even see that, but, can I just walk around? Can I show
Yes.
you? Is that okay?
Yes,
May I-
that's
may I
fine.
approach the bench?
Yes, you may approach the bench.
So this is kind of what we're looking at here. So this is the current layout. This is what
This is second floor?
this is the main first.
Oh, I see. Here's Amazon. Got it?
Yeah, so we're kind of splitting that off from everything else, and then we have our lanes. Side.
Okay.
Do you want to go down and show
Yeah.
this group? And then,
Does this kind of make sense?
I gotcha.
and then cover.
As I see that, the most impacted people from a really good smashing party will be you next door in your house, and then the Amazon sort of storage space.
Yeah, because that's back here. This is the street entrance right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those
mhm.
are the red.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you get your question answered?
I did, thanks.
Are there any further questions for Chad while he's up? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to do the finding of facts now during the open public hearing part of the meeting in case there are any additional questions? and then I'll close the public hearing after that. First question is the proposed use allowed as a conditional use in the zoning district in which it is proposed?
And staff responded, yes, indoor commercial entertainment / recreation uses are allowed in the I-2 zoning district with a conditional use permit. It's staff's opinion that the proposed use complies with the zoning ordinance definition for an indoor commercial entertainment / recreational use.
Okay, and after each question, I'd like the commission to either say yea or nay to the questions so that we know what your feeling is. So, do we all agree?
Yes.
Thank you. Is the use consistent with the applicable policies, recommendations, and regulations of the city's comprehensive plan, other adopted land use studies, and Appendix A zoning ordinance?
Staff responded, yes, the comprehensive plan designates this property as industrial. The city's zoning ordinance allows for the proposed use in the I-2 zoning district with a conditional use permit. The city council has approved similar uses in this zoning district. In staff's opinion, the proposed use is consistent with the applicable city documents.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Will the use adversely impact nearby properties through nuisance, noise, traffic, dust, odor, or unsightliness, and will not otherwise adversely impact the health, safety, and welfare of the community?
Staff responded, no, the business activities will take place within an existing building. As a result, this should eliminate or reduce any potential adverse impacts on nearby properties. Staff believes that there are also adequate standards in the city code, zoning ordinance, and the proposed conditions for this request to mitigate any adverse conditions resulting from the business operations.
Do you agree? Thank you. Will the use be injurious, hazardous to the use and enjoyment of other property in the vicinity, or impede the normal and ordinarily development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district?
Staff responded, no, the proposed use will take place within an existing building. This will limit any adverse impacts on surrounding properties.
Do we agree?
Agree.
Thank you. Will the use be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner that is compatible in appearance with the existing or intended character of the surrounding area?
Staff responded, yes, the applicant has indicated that the exterior of the building will remain the same with the exception of a new door on the street side of the building.
Thank you. Do we agree?
Agree.
Agree.
Could I clarify that?
Yes.
I heard at one point that there was going to be a new door, and another point that there wasn't going to be a new door. Which is it?
He said no.
No,
That there
okay.
was not going to be a new door.
All right.
Pardon me? Oh, there will be a new. Oh, I'm sorry. I understood
Okay.
you were using the same entrance.
All right.
Thank you. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. The use will not substantially diminish or impair the value of neighboring properties.
Staff responded, yes, the use is not anticipated to have any effect on the value of surrounding properties.
Do we agree?
Agree.
The site is adequately served by and will not impose a burden on essential public facilities and services, including utility, street drainage, police and fire protection, and schools.
Staff responded, yes, the building is currently served by public facilities and services. The business will not impact the operation or the capacity of these systems.
Do you agree?
Agree.
Will the development and operation of the use create an excessive additional requirements at public costs for facilities and services and will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community?
Staff responded, no, it is not anticipated that the use will create additional public costs for the community, facilities, or services due to its size and location in an existing building.
Do we agree? Have adequate measures been taken to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets and provide for adequate on-site circulation of traffic, parking and loading spaces?
Staff responded, yes. The business does not appear to be of sufficient size to generate traffic congestion. There is also adequate space to safely accommodate business traffic and parking.
We agree.
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 Will the use result in the destruction, loss, or damage of natural, scenic, or historic features of major importance to the community?
Staff responded, no, the use will not impact natural, scenic, or historic features within the community.
Agree?
Agree.
Have impacts such as noise, odor, hours of activity, outdoor lighting, and site pollution been sufficiently addressed to mitigate impacts on nearby uses?
Staff responded, yes, the proposed business will not generate odor, have excessive outdoor lighting, or provide site pollution. The applicant will be responsible for controlling the volume and amount of business noise per city code requirements. The hours of operation appear reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Do we agree?
Agree.
Could I follow up again? Sorry.
It's all right. This is the time.
Could we clarify again the hours of operation? I think something was added to it, and just so we all hear what they are today.
Okay, it's my understanding that the hours of operation are on weekdays, 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And on weekends, on Saturday, it's 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on Sundays, it's 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay. Guess I'm fine with that.
Do we agree?
Agree.
Agree.
I'm on 13 now. I lost, okay. Will the use be required to adhere to any additional criteria outlined in section 9.2 for the proposed use?
Staff responded, no, the proposed use meets the requirements set forth in section 9.2 G 12 through 13. And I would note, I think we skipped over 12.
Yeah.
Right.
Which one did I skip?
12.
12, oh, thank you. Do the benefits of the use outweigh the potential negative effects of the surrounding or community?
Staff responded, yes, the use provides a different form of entertainment that should outweigh any negative effects.
And we agree?
Agree.
Agree.
Thank you for being patient with my losing my way. Chad, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I don't know if you all had the chance to see it, but Chad did have the layout over on the overhead projector. So,
You put it on there real quickly and just,
and I would note too, when this goes to the city council next Tuesday, we'll also include the site layout that Mr. Akis has provided.
Okay. That would be perfect. Why
Chad,
don't you
could just
explain it for the
briefly
benefit of?
explain?
Yeah. So right here, we're looking at adding 5 lanes for axe throwing, and then back over here, 2 of the rate.
And could you show us where the new and existing doors are? I still don't quite know what the front of the building will change.
Yep. So here's the current layout. You can see that okay?
Yeah.
And then what we're proposing to is adding the blue in the front.
Oh,
To the left of that will be the new.
okay. Okay.
Is that it for questions? Does anyone have any more questions before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'm closing the public hearing portion of the meeting. I'd like to call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval for, with conditions, the application of Chad and John on behalf of JMG Rentals Incorporated to allow an indoor commercial entertainment recreation use on property zoned I-2 General Industrial zoning district and located on the property legally described as Lot B of Lot 1 and Lot B2, Block 3 north of Center Street, center of City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? When will this appear at the council?
This will go to the city council February 4th, next Tuesday at 4:30 PM.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next item on the agenda for public hearing is okay, I'm going to mess this up. Mary Chartier. Simple lot division?
This is not a public hearing, but somehow it got included in this
Do you want
particular
to,
section.
did you want to go to the zonings or do you want to stay here?
Why don't we continue with the other public hearings and then we'll come
Okay,
back
so
to
I'm
this.
going to go to the zoning then?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next on the, remind me please to come back to, next item on the agenda then is the zoning amendment temporary signs.
Okay, the request here is a public hearing, an ordinance amendment to section 10.5 of Appendix A, the city zoning ordinance, to the city code to update temporary signage requirements. The applicant is the New Ulm City Council. The property owner, legal address, and street address are not applicable here. There is not a deadline for a decision on this matter. There are no land use designations, no surrounding land use designations, but the zoning designation, this temporary sign update or amendment would apply to all zoning districts in the city of New Ulm. Notice of the hearing was published in the January 18th, 2025 edition of the New Ulm Journal. To date, we have not received any public comment regarding this amendment. In your packets, and I'll pull it up on the computer screen here, we actually have the amended language that we're proposing. Gosh, we're having computer troubles tonight. And I just want to read that for the record. Okay, we're getting there. So in section 10.5 of Appendix A, that is all of our sign regulations in the zoning ordinance. And within that section, there are a number of different areas where we are making these amendments to basically try and clarify those temporary sign regulations, and then also make sure there's not any mystery as to how else they apply to a permanent sign or things like that. So the first amendment being proposed is actually in the table. It's table 10.5. And the only change in this table is the underlined word here. So previously, in our zoning ordinance, it said, all signs in the business districts may be illuminated. So that would include both permanent and temporary signs. We wanted the ordinance to reflect that the only signs that are allowed to be illuminated in those business districts would be permanent signs. So that was the only change in that table. As you go further on in your packets, 10.5 D2A, that's where we start to really specify the different regulations regarding temporary signs. Previously, what we had in this section was a small part on temporary signs in all zoning districts. And then we had one provision regarding residential zoning districts. We wanted to make sure that we added language that said temporary signs is permitted over and above typical signage limitations on property for permanent signage, subject to the following restrictions. One, it couldn't be illuminated. Two, it be placed on the premises as described in the permit application. Three, it be displayed for no longer than one continuous 30-day period from the date of issuance to of the permit. And then four, only be displayed for a maximum of 1 month within a 4-month period. So what we were trying to do here is, to say this simply, these can't be illuminated. It needs to be on the sign of, on the property of which it was permitted. So you couldn't take a temporary sign out for City Hall way on the north end of town. It can only be displayed for one continuous 30-day period, and that 30-day period can only be once basically per quarter. And then specifically in our previous language, we didn't specify whether or not temporary signage was over and above permanent signage. If you would have read it, it would have inferred that both temporary and permanent signage would be added together just to count for all signs on the property. So here we're stating that the temporary signage is over and above what's allowed on that property. For permanent signage, I should say. We further clarified that in all districts, you can have one sign up to 12 square feet, should be allowed over the base allowance when the subject property is for sale. Such signs shall not be displayed in the public right-of-way. You can also have one additional sign of up to 12 square feet over the base sign allowances when the subject property has an active building permit and construction activity is going on in accordance with the issued permit. Such signs shall be removed when the construction activity is substantially complete or ceased within 1 or more week. So we wanted to provide clarification there. In residential zoning districts, one sign up to 64 square feet in surface area shall be allowed over base sign allowances for a group of properties created through a final plat process. Such signs shall be no more than 8 feet in height or less than 2 feet above grade. So these you would typically see when the brand new development is created through the platting process. Dakota West had them. We've had them up in the industrial park as well. I would note we did receive one comment on that maybe we should consider clarifying language on a triggering mechanism that says you have to remove that. Maybe something for the planning commission to think about. What would be that triggering mechanism to have that sign removed? In commercial and industrial zoning districts, you can have one sign up to 32 square feet in surface area with a maximum of 2 surfaces that shall be allowed over the base sign allowances. Such a sign shall not exceed 8 feet in height at ground location, at the ground location of the sign, and no more than one sign shall be displayed per business. The reason we use the term per business is you could have a situation where it's one single property, multiple businesses on the property. We have strip malls in both the north and south end of town. This would allow for that situation to have one temporary sign of up to 32 square feet per business on that property. We further clarified under banners that banners attached to buildings and walls shall be considered permanent signs. All other banners shall adhere to the requirements for temporary signage. We have a couple examples in New Ulm where there are businesses where they have a banner consistently daily, 365 of the year, but they're changing that. When we're taking a look at that, we wouldn't consider that to be a temporary sign. Rather, it's a permanent sign and counts towards their permanent sign allowances on that property. So we just wanted to make that clarification language. The proposed amendments are being recommended by staff to further clarify temporary sign regulations in the city of New Ulm's zoning ordinance. We had 3 attachments. The proposed ordinance is in your packet that was drafted by the city attorney. We have temporary sign examples. I'll pull those up on the screen. So here are just a number of different temporary signs that we've seen within the community. There are a lot of different types of temporary signs, but here are just a few examples. And then we have the findings of facts supporting or denying a zoning text or map amendment.
I would note the reason that this is before you today is that we did have a situation where someone placed a temporary sign, and we were trying to determine how to deal with this particular situation. And what we found is that our ordinance was inadequate in helping us answer a number of questions. And so that's why this was put together, and it's, we're presenting it to you today.
John, can we go back to the banners? And one thing that I see always, for banners, so how do we have to have a special permit for banners, say Center Street and Broadway? There's a fence that has banners continuously, say for different,
The residents.
well,
Isn't it?
it's banners for, say, like State Street Theater,
Yes, Turner
to the Legion, to other activities in the community. How does that get addressed? Does that relate to this in any capacities?
Those would be considered temporary signs.
So they're permitted, basically, or they have to get a permit to put the sign there?
They should be, yes.
So he's only allowed one every 4 months?
That's the way the rule reads.
So we don't enforce it, or it hasn't been, or it hasn't?
Typically, we've been, with temporary signs in particular, it's been on a complaint basis is how we've been handling those. So once we receive a complaint, we go out and enforce what is in our zoning regulations. And we felt part of clarifying this is we didn't have really good specifications on how we were going to regulate it if we did receive a complaint, and that's why we are presenting this to you today.
So if this is updated moving forward, and if there's a complaint, you'll have the tools that you need to address whatever the complaint might be.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that specific piece of property. Is there a provision for getting a variance to allow those banners to be up more frequently or more often? They tend to change whenever the theater's got a new production, or it sort of becomes the advertising for the theater. It's kind of off-site as well, so.
They would have the opportunity to apply for some sort of variance. I would note that that property is in the B1
B1
zoning district, so it's a residential property, yes, but it's in a commercial zoning district.
Okay.
I wouldn't, not that I want to be a spoiler here, but it's like basically 501c3s, is it not, that is doing the advertising on that? That's what they're using for their, and yeah, and I agree with that, it gets to be a lot of signs, but if you start enforcing that banner ordinance, do you enforce the other ordinances that are in town that said it's roasted chicken night, or it's all of the other banners that are constantly hanging off of businesses?
Again, we would do that on a complaint basis. If we would receive a complaint about that, we'd go out and take the proper steps to enforce this regulation. At this time, we don't require those folks to come in and apply for a permit.
I do have one question regarding the all zoning districts. It's in the beginning of this part, it's number 4, only displayed for a maximum of 1 month within a 4-month period. If I was putting up a temporary banner or sign that said building for rent, can I only have that sign up for 1 month out of a quarter?
It would be our intent that those things were dealt with, let's call it separately, that those for sale types of things would be separate from commercial advertisement, let's say.
The way the code is written, the the for sale signs were kind of a separate category. And there was separate provision for them. And so we're really talking about two different types of things.
One of the examples is a for sale sign, though.
That I
Say that again?
it would there's a for sale sign there that's being displayed. I think it was perhaps more the type of signage, the size of the signage.
All right. One of my questions is, all right, so political signs that people put in their yard, school pride signs that people put in their yard, all of these things would be regulated under this temporary signage?
I would note that temporary signage is over and above what's allowed for for permanent signs on the property. In residential zoning districts, we allow up to 6 square feet of signage on the property. So if you had a sign, you could tell us that this is our permanent sign and this is my 6 square feet that I'm using.
I would also note that when it comes to political signage, there's a certain time period that's prescribed in state statute in which the local jurisdictions have no authority to basically regulate that signage. Outside of that particular period of time, you could still put up a political sign. It just would have to comply with our requirements.
Well, there's, the Human Rights Commission has the signs that are permanently on people's yards.
So
and
right now, we
that's-
allow 6 square feet of signage in a residential zoning district.
Did you say we will do variances for special circumstances?
We have variance procedures that basically, if anybody wants to vary from what is written in our zoning ordinance, if they follow those procedures, they have the right to apply for a variance.
I just think about, like, when the business I operated burned down, we had a banner up for, this is when we're opening, and we had a banner for hiring staff. And that's a special circumstance. Obviously, a business isn't going to go through that on a regular basis, but if you do, then in that circumstance, you may need extra signage.
Sure.
It's not like roasted chicken tonight, and that could stay up for 30 days. That's understandable. Okay.
May I? So just to clarify for myself and maybe others, if I have a Human Rights Commission sign in my front yard, it's under 6 square feet. These temporary sign regulations don't even apply to that. I'm simply allowed that.
Right.
And if I want to say, I love blue sky, and as long as it's under 6 square feet, I can say that. I think some of us might have been thinking these new regulations say you can only have that out there for 30 days and a quarter, and that's not true, right?
No, thank you for that clarification. That's a good assessment.
One of the problems with the changes that are being proposed is that we had a list of changes for temporary signs, and there were about 8 of them, and we're just 1 through 8. And the attorney took those 8 and put them into our existing signage ordinance. And so a lot of the things that John repeated is actually that language that's already there. And so there's some new stuff, but there's a lot of old stuff as well.
Could I follow up on, so some new stuff related to the, I guess I'd call it a subdivision development sign. It's the big board that a developer will use to sell off his individual lots, and it writes sold on a lot as it sells off. And when he gets to the end of it, with this new regulation, proposed new regulations, there really isn't any event or timeline to get rid of that sign. And I think it would be better if we put something on it that said, I don't know, within 2 weeks or 30 days or something after that final lot is sold, this big sign needs to go away from that property.
Yeah, we currently have that type of provision with our commercial, and so it would be easy enough to add it to our to these types. No, It's the signage for, that's for sale, for properties
Right.
that are for sale, for rent, whatever. We have that provision, so we could take that provision and add it to this as well.
We have something similar when someone's done with their contracting job on a site, that after a certain amount of days, it needs to be removed.
That top right corner picture, that wouldn't be allowed with what you're proposing, correct? Only one of those banners would be allowed, right?
One of the banners? well,
Like the top right corner picture, it shows a whole slew of them.
Yep.
Only one of them would be allowed.
One of
right?
them up to 32 square feet.
So in the case of car sales, at the, say Jensen Motor puts up 3 of those, that's outside of the ordinance.
The way these new provisions read, they're allowed one temporary sign up to 32 square feet.
Do our businesses know the current zoning for everything, for the signage, temporary and stuff like that? Or have we?
How would we determine that? I mean, these sign regulations were first of all adopted in 2022, and I felt like there was enough public comment period to address that. We didn't hear anything on it. These new regulations, this is the first time they've been brought to the public. So I'm assuming there will be maybe some information in the newspaper regarding this matter, and then it's also going to the city council twice to be reviewed as well.
What did you say about 2022? Because there was sign regulations in place prior to that.
There was, but when we adopted the new regulations, that was in 2022.
Got it. I was aware there was sign, but I don't remember how it was brought to my attention. I think maybe the city called me over something with banner. I don't recall.
Well, it's come to my attention several times on different commissions because people hang signs because very few people understand that
Yeah.
that's controlled. It's like, painting your building downtown early, you have to almost come because it's a historic place. You have to
Yeah.
come before.
Yeah, which
And
makes
very
sense.
few people understand that or know it. New business, new people coming to town.
Right.
So. But it's easily handled. It's nothing that, you're not fined or taken to the woodshed or anything. It's just a,
Right, right. Same with this. When I was made aware of this, of the
Yeah.
sign regulations, they just called and, it wasn't
yeah,
a negative thing.
no.
I'm wondering if once every 4 months is a little overly strict for a business.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If you had a business and then it fell through and you wanted to put another sign up, that was where I was going with that. If you needed to repeat the sign within 4 months is,
Sorry, are you, just to clarify here, I think I heard 2 different things. To clarify, Chair, you're saying that if the business shut down and a new business opened up,
or didn't even come to fruition, say I rented this space out and it fell through and then we needed to re-sign or put something up, or the business changed in that period of time. Can we
Or
put,
a help wanted sign. Help wanted
or
sign is a
help,
good example.
yeah,
for
any
businesses.
signage that you want to put it up, it may occur again within 4 months.
Okay.
Because the situation has changed.
right? If the,
Or like Bobby just brought up a help wanted. Graham's had a temporary signage out front and 2 locations, entries for several years.
Is that a permanent sign now?
Permanent
Or-
sign.
So these are great questions. One, in the 3M situation, they're allowed a fair amount of signage because of the amount of street frontage that they have. I don't think they come close to meeting that maximum amount, so that wouldn't be a concern. But that's one way we could approach this, is to look at, does that fit within the total sign area allowed on the property? If it doesn't meet that criteria, then we would have to take another look at it and see if this is some kind of special circumstance, and then work with those property owners.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that these properties already have the right place signage, and there are, standards for that. So it's, and they may be under what those standards are.
Well, I guess is the answer to my question with the 4 months thing. If it's a second sign and I've come back with it, are you going to wait till you get a complaint to come and enforce that sign? I'm not asking you how to break the law. I'm just saying, how can I break the law? No.
If it comes to our attention, whether we're driving by or we receive a
Okay.
complaint on it, we'll act upon it.
I would also note that with any change that we typically recommend to you in our zoning ordinance, we look what other communities are doing, and the 1 month out of 4 months was something that we frequently saw.
Okay.
And we're always looking at communities that generally are our size. So we're
Albie said, is your question answered?
It is. It's just difficult because businesses have so many different situations that could occur, and I think once every 4 months is pretty strict for all the situations that could occur for a business. How many businesses? So you said like with 3M, they are not hitting their maximum footage for their sign. How many businesses are in that situation where they have a little bit of leeway because they're not using their maximum?
I would say, I don't have an exact number for you,
Yeah, I don't expect that.
but when we, I think it's been since zoning ordinances have been adopted in the city of New Ulm, I think we've only had 2 sign variance requests to go over and above the allowed amount. So that would indicate to me that they're either at that threshold or below the threshold.
Okay. I mean, help wanted is a big one that I think of. I don't want to hurt businesses by saying, well, you can't put that sign up. It's once every 4 months, and they're struggling to get staff, or all the different situations that could occur. There's a lot of them that we're not even thinking about here.
Okay. Go for it.
I think I understand the help wanted situation, and maybe that's covered in, businesses are allowed a certain amount of their windows to be covered in signage. And as long as you haven't maxed out what you're allowed on site, you can put whatever you want in there, business oriented, as long as it doesn't cover more of your window than is allowed, and you don't have more than your front of your building would support. So it doesn't, I don't think it sounds like a problem, although I'm not a business owner, so I can't say that for sure.
Not every business is going to want to do that. I mean, 3M, for example, if they have something in their window, I'm not going to see that. I'm not going to see that unless I go into the business, So I don't know if that's sufficient for a lot of
Yeah,
businesses.
I guess I was thinking downtown. You're right.
I think it's more answered by what John said. If they're not hitting their maximum for their sign and they still have some leeway there, help wanted signs aren't typically 6 feet long or whatever. So I think it would be addressed there.
Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the finding of facts form, if everyone is ready. Okay. Are you ready, John?
Yeah.
In your opinion, does the proposed amendment correct an error in the original text or map?
Staff responded, no, there was not a mistake in the text or map that precipitated this proposed change.
Does everyone agree?
Agree.
In your opinion, does the proposed amendment address needs arising from the changing conditions, trends, or facts affecting the subject property and surrounding area?
Staff responded, yes, the use of temporary signs has seen an increase in the recent past and has generated questions regarding their regulation. It's the intent of this zoning amendment to provide clarifying language in the zoning ordinance with regards to location, size, and duration of temporary signs.
Everyone agree?
Agree.
In your opinion, is the proposed amendment consistent with achieving the goals and objectives outlined in the comprehensive plan?
Staff responded, yes, this amendment provides more clarification on temporary sign regulation in the city of New Ulm. Providing clear and concise zoning regulations is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan.
Does everyone agree?
Agree.
Okay. Is there any further discussion before I close the public hearing portion of this meeting and we call for a vote?
The only thing I would ask is that if you're wanting to provide further clarifying language regarding the large residential signs for development, could you put that in the motion with an amendment to that motion?
Understood.
May I move?
You may, I would like to close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and then you may move.
I'd like to move that we recommend approval of the amendment as outlined in the staff report, with the additional language that the large, I guess we'll call them residential development signs be removed within 30 days of sale of the last lot.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the zoning amendment lot area requirements in the I-1 zoning districts. Staff report.
Okay. This is a public hearing for an ordinance amendment amending Section 6.2, the I-1 Development Standards, and Section 13.1, Rules of Appendix A of the city zoning ordinance to the city code. Applicant is the New Ulm City Council. The zoning designation in which this amendment would apply would be to the I-1 Planned Industrial Zoning District. Public hearing notice was published in the Journal on January 18th in the 2025. To date, we have not received comment regarding this proposed amendment. Amended sections of the zoning ordinance would include the following. 1, Section 6.2 would establish a second set of development standards. I'm going to pull that up for everybody to see. That second set would be the column labeled grid, lot, and pattern in the I-1 Planned Industrial Zoning District. Section 13.2 defines the terms grid lot and grid pattern, and the proposed definitions are as follows. Grid lot would be a parcel of land within a legal subdivision composed of two sets of lines, each set drawn to a definite pattern and intersecting the other at right angles to form a grid. And then grid pattern would be a type of city plan in which the network composed of two sets of streets, each set drawn to a definite pattern consisting of uniformly spaced parallel streets intersecting the other at right angles, also known as a grid plan, a grid street plan, or a grid iron plan. For reference, in New Ulm, the grid pattern can generally be considered the area bounded by 20th South Street, extension on the south side, South Payne Street on the west side, Center Street on the south side, North Garden Street on the west side, and 20th North Street on the north side. North Water Street on the east side, 8th North Street on the north side, and North Front Street and South Front Street on the east side, and ending at 20th South Street. That grid pattern, if you're familiar with seeing the original city plat, that is clearly laid out in the original city plat, that grid pattern of the city, including outlets. The purpose of this zoning amendment, the reason this is being recommended by staff is to correct an error in the existing ordinance and to take into account existing property and their configurations in the grid pattern in New Ulm. Historically, grid properties in the grid pattern area of the city are smaller in size than newly platted, undeveloped I-1 zoned areas. And we provided the proposed zoning amendment language But I think this map here, attachment 2, can be useful. This area in light blue is the only area, I-1 zoned area within the grid pattern of New Ulm in which this zoning ordinance amendment would affect. This is on the north end of New Ulm. You can see 20th Street North is, or 20th North Street is the boundary on the north side, and then we have 12th North on the south side, with the railroad being the boundary on the west, and then essentially the bike path to the east. So following a public hearing, the Planning Commission shall adopt findings of facts and recommendations using each of the review criteria outlined in Section 2.4B5. Recommendations and decisions on zoning amendments shall be based on the consideration of the following review criteria. A, whether the proposed amendment corrects an error in the original text or map. B, whether the proposed amendment addresses needs arising from a changing condition, trend, or fact affecting the subject property and surrounding area. And C, whether the proposed amendment is consistent with achieving the goals and objectives outlined in the comprehensive plan. The City Council may adopt the amendment or any part of the amendment in such a form as deems advisable. A decision on any request shall be accompanied by the findings of fact. As part of the approval process, the City Council will direct the City Attorney to prepare an ordinance identifying the changes to be made in Appendix A. The City Council will conduct 2 considerations of the ordinance. Following the second consideration, the City will vote on the ordinance amendment. The amendment requires the approval of 4/5 of all members of the City Council, and the amendment is also effective 30 days after its final publication in the Journal. So for Planning Commission consideration, does the Planning Commission believe the proposed amendments comply with the review criteria outlined in Appendix A? And are there additional or fewer requirements the Planning Commission would like to see incorporated into the amendment? So, staff would recommend approval of the zoning amendments described in the proposed ordinance. This ordinance would allow staff to deal with existing properties more effectively by establishing a second set of I-1 development standards and providing definitions for the terms grid lot and grid pattern in the City of New Ulm zoning ordinance. There's 2 motions, one to recommend approval of the ordinance amendment and one to recommend denial of the ordinance amendment. And that concludes the staff report.
Are there any questions for this before we begin the finding of facts?
I have just one. I'm wondering what the purpose is for setting a maximum size on the lot in the grid pattern part of the city.
So I think to provide clarification on this, what we're really trying to do is provide a minimum size up to 20,000 square feet. They can have a lot that's over 20,000 square feet in the grid pattern, but if it's in that 12,000 to 20,000 range, these less restrictive zoning regulations would apply.
I would also note that prior to the adoption of the new zoning ordinance, in the I-1 zone, our minimum lot area was 12,000 square feet. So what we're doing is we're reverting back to what it previously was. And we've done that with a number of different zoning districts. We've had a number of amendments that we've approved recently.
Correct. Yes.
Would it be confusing? Let's say I own a lot in the grid pattern I-1 area, and I've got a 30,000 square foot lot. Do I automatically assume I have if I look at this table, I wouldn't assume that I get to go under the standard regulations, that I would have to fit then under the grid lot pattern. Is it confusing to anybody besides me? Evidently not. So it's okay then.
This is the same. This is the same way we've configured the patterns, where we've made adjustments to lot areas with the other zoning districts. So we're being consistent in that manner. What we're saying is that your minimum lot area, we're reducing from 20,000, which is what it currently is, down to 12,000.
Mm-hmm. And in reality, there isn't
Hopefully-
a max. really.
No, because it's 20,000 or larger.
Okay, I follow. I follow.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm going to move on to the finding of facts form then. Are you ready, John?
Yeah.
In your opinion, does the proposed amendment correct an error in the original text or map?
Staff responded, no, there was not a mistake in the text or map that precipitated this proposal change.
Do we agree? In your opinion, does the proposed amendment address needs arising from changing conditions, trends, or facts affecting the subject property and surrounding area?
Staff responded, yes, the change arises from the fact that was not considered when the new zoning ordinance was adopted. The new zoning ordinance did not take into consideration smaller I-1 properties in the grid pattern locations of the city.
Do we agree?
Agree.
In your opinion, is the proposed amendment consistent with achieving the goals and objectives outlined in the comprehensive plan?
Staff responded, yes, the amendment will allow grid lots in the I-1 zoning district to develop that are greater than 12,000 square feet, but less than 20,000 square feet. The I-1 zoning district amendment and additional definitions of grid pattern and grid lot aligned with the comprehensive plan industrial districts.
Are there any other questions before I close the public hearing portion of this meeting? Okay, I'm closing the public hearing portion of the meeting and calling for a motion, please. On page 3.
I'm not hearing anybody, so I'm going to offer a motion to approve recommended approval of the ordinance number 2025 to be determined, making arrangements in Appendix A of the New Ulm City Code.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions before I call? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this goes before the city council how many times?
Let's go
Twice?
twice. The first reading would be February 4th,
Okay,
next Tuesday.
thank you. Now I'm going to move back to the Mary, because this is not a public hearing, correct? Mary Chartier, simple lot division?
Okay, the legal description of the property is Lot 6, Block 30 north of Center Street. Street address is 923 North Valley Street. Property is located east of North Valley Street and south of 10th North Street. Deadline for decision is March 26, 2025. Land use designation according to the comprehensive plan is low-density residential. You find that same land use in the comprehensive plan, north, east, south, and west. We also have industrial to the east. Zoning designation is RT2, which is single and two-family residence district. We have the same zoning to the north, east, south, and west. To the east, we also have I2, which is general industrial district. The current site land use, it's vacant, although along its south property line of Lot 6, there is a single-family dwelling and garage. Current area land uses are all single-family dwellings in all four directions. To the east, we also have the railroad and then Schaefer Crane. Notice none is required. Public comment, none has been received to date. A little bit about this particular request. The applicant is the owner of Lot 5, 6, and 7, Block 30 North. There are two single-family dwellings on the three lots. One residence is located on Lot 7, and the second residence is located on Lot 5, but as I indicated, it is fairly close to the south property line of Lot 6. Both residents have detached garages. The existing lots, all three of them have dimensions of 50 by 165, so they're typical gridiron lots. Total lot area of 8,250 square feet. Applicant is proposing to divide Lot 6 into 2 equal parcels and attach the new parcels to the adjoining lots. This would establish 2 lots that are 75 feet wide. The proposed legal descriptions would be as follows. It would be the north half of Lot 6, and it would be the south half of Lot 6. There are required setbacks, but none would impact this lot division, and the staff has not been advised of any utility conflicts caused by the proposed lot division. There are 5 attachments. There's the applicant's letter. There is a site location map, zoning map, a simple lot division map, and then ground level photos. Staff would recommend approval of the simple lot division with, actually, it's not 1 condition. I'd like to change that, 3 conditions, since it complies with city code requirements. The proposed conditions would be as follows. The applicant will record the resolution authorizing the simple lot division with the Brown County Recorder's Office, and that is when it is effective. The second condition would be the north half of Lot 6 will be combined with the adjoining Lot 7 of Block 30 north of Center Street to form 1 parcel of property for tax and building purposes. The reason we do that is because 1 half of Lot 6 is not a legal lot in the city of New Ulm. So that's why it has to be attached to the adjoining lot. And that is what the property owner wants to accomplish. The third condition is that the south half of Lot 6 will be combined with the adjoining Lot 5 of Block 30 north of Center Street to form 1 parcel of property for tax and building purposes. And that would conclude the staff report.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
So what, this currently is one owner. Once they're combined, it doesn't go back? They can't come back and say, we want to split them back off and make a...
I guess if they wanted to come back and, establish 3 lots there, yeah, they could do that.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'd call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval with 3 conditions. The simple lot division of Lot 6, Block 30, north of Center Street, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota, with the new legal descriptions to read as follows. The north 1 half of Lot 6, Block 30, north of Center Street, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. The south 1 half lot of Lot 6, Block 30, north of Center Street, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota.
We have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to reports. First report is the adult use cannabis regulations. The cannabis presentation from January of 2025, and the cannabis and hemp businesses and zoning memorandum, city attorney. So I'm going to the first one for.
Yeah, let me just pull it up here. It's in,
View.
I don't know what's going on with the computer tonight. It's pretty rough.
It's taking a long time to load too,
Is
so,
it pulling up on your computers?
yes.
Let me cancel out of here and see if I can get it. It's one of those kind of technical nights. So while this is pulling up, first of all, I want to thank these folks for waiting here this whole
They've been
time.
very patient, and they have listened through the whole meeting.
But the state of Minnesota in 2023 adopted or created a law that allows adult use cannabis in the state of Minnesota. And with that, there are certain things that the city can regulate or participate in regarding this law. But I would note that, I don't know why this isn't pulling up. The Planning Commission's role in this matter is not to make a decision whether or not the legality of adult use cannabis in the state of Minnesota. Our role here for the Planning Commission is to provide guidance on both what the use types should be defined as in New Ulm, and where we would allow or not allow those different types of cannabis-related uses in the city. So I want to make that clear from the get-go. And due to time here, I'm wondering if you want me to kind of go through this a little bit quicker and maybe summarize a little bit more. Okay.
That depends on them. Do
Right.
you want a quick summary, or do you want a length?
Mainly here to see if you guys have any questions or concerns.
Okay,
So we intend on starting a retail location in New
Okay.
Ulm, and we want to make sure that we're communicating with the city, so if there are any concerns, questions.
Come on up here if you wouldn't mind.
Our intent
please state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Glenn Hauser, 37055, 561st Avenue, Lafayette. So our intent is to start a retail location in New Ulm. We will be cultivating in the city of Lafayette. We have a building secured that we will be doing that in. And we would like to be a part of downtown. But we also want to be on brand with New Ulm. You know what I mean? And we just kind of want to make sure and see if anybody has any concerns or questions, just kind of open a communication line. So that's pretty much it, if you guys have anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Then if it's okay with the commission, is the commission opposed to an abbreviated version, or do you want the lengthy version of John's presentation? Good.
I'm fine with abbreviate, but I have one quick question. So if I go to the bar and have one drink, I'm okay going and driving home because I'm under the legal limit. If I'm going to go to your establishment, and what am I going to do? Am I going to smoke? Am I going to eat a gummy? Is there multiple options?
So there would be, we would intend for there to be an area, which would be separated as per the rules, that you could consume, but that would be not smoking anything, so it would be mostly edibles. So it would be up to us, like, we can't serve intoxicated people, and try to make sure that people are okay with what. Don't want to let somebody have too much and drive.
So it's
Doesn't
just like
matter where you are.
drinking, like there's a limit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So does edibles include liquids?
Edibles would be consumed, yeah, we would be serving, if the business plan and the state doesn't change any more rules, our intent would be to have like gummies and chocolates and drinks. These aren't things that you would have to, consume there. Certain things, like once you open, if you buy something with the intent to consume it there, you can't take that item out the door, so I can't sell you a drink. You can't take it outside and give it to somebody. But yeah,
It's open bottled and whatever, yeah,
Is
okay.
there smoking too, or is that not?
you can smoke cannabis, but that's not something that we would want on premise, so we prefer that. That's more bothersome to people. If you kind of understand, like the vaping and stuff, if it smells a little bit like strawberries or whatever, that's kind of fine, but some people don't care for the cannabis smell, and we want to make sure that we are keeping with New Ulm and not trying to degrade anything.
So there'll be vaping but no smoking?
There would be, vaping would be outside and smoking would be outside downtown as per the regulations that New Ulm has. We
Gotcha.
wouldn't allow anything in the building itself.
Gotcha.
That's mainly it.
Does anybody else have any questions before we do, and is everyone okay with the abbreviated version?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
I would note that I'll give an abbreviated version, but in the beginning of this presentation, there's a number of terms, and those terms are things that we'd probably want to have as definitions in our zoning ordinance, and use those terms that we define as to where it's permitted or not permitted within certain zoning districts in New Ulm. So I think it's important to at least note the terms. We have a micro business that can cultivate cannabis and manufacture cannabis products and hemp products and package those products for sale or to customers and other licensed cannabis business. They can only operate a single retail location. And these terms are coming straight out of the state law. So a mezzo business may cultivate cannabis and manufacture cannabis products and hemp products, but they may operate up to 3 locations, retail locations. If I understand the difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is that a micro business, you can apply for the license and they can essentially grant that license. A mezzo business is through the lottery system.
Yes.
From the state, so you're not guaranteed a license in that type of situation. Cultivator may cultivate cannabis and package such cannabis products for sale to other licensed cannabis businesses. Manufacturers cannabis products and hemp products and packages them for sale to a licensed cannabis retailer. Retailers may sell immature cannabis plants, seedlings, cannabis products, hemp products, and other products authorized by law to customers and patients. Wholesalers, they're allowed to sell, again, immature cannabis plants, seedlings, and other things that the retailer would from another cannabis licensed business. Wholesalers may also import hemp-derived consumer products and lower potency hemp edibles. Transporter may transport immature cannabis plants and seedlings, products, and hemp products to a licensed cannabis business. Testing facilities may obtain and test immature cannabis plants and seedlings and products from a licensed cannabis business. Event organizers may organize a temporary cannabis event lasting no more than 4 days. And delivery services may purchase cannabis and related products from retailers or other cannabis businesses with retail endorsements for transport and delivery to customers. Then there's a medical cannabis definition, and then the lower potency hemp edible manufacturer and retailer. And again, if I'm not mistaken, those bottom 2 are already were previously allowed by state law before this cannabis law came into effect. So we as a local government have various means of oversight and regulating the cannabis laws or rules in the city of New Ulm, but we can't outright ban cannabis related businesses in the city of New Ulm beyond what's provided by in state law. And that state law says if you have over 12,500 residents within your community, you basically can't ban it within the city. There's kind of this will be kind of like a 2-step process. Okay, if I understand correctly, when they apply to the state for their license, there's a number of things that they have to work through on the state side of things. The state will then call and verify that they're allowed in a certain zoning district before they issue the license to anybody who wishes to participate in these types of businesses. So they're already doing a zoning check before they even get their license from the state, if they've picked a location. Local governments may issue more than the minimum number of registrations, so we have to allow up to 1 registration per 12,500 people. This was brought to the city council a week or so ago, and at a work session, they were discussing the number of 2 to 3 retailers within the city. Then we have how taxes and there are timing restrictions where the city may prohibit retail sales of cannabis between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Monday through Saturday, 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. the following day. Again, I think that would be handled on the licensing side, which would be covered by our finance office. So more to the zoning and land use part of this discussion. So in the law, they provide buffer guidelines, and it says that state law does not restrict how local governments conduct its zoning designation for cannabis businesses, except that they may prohibit the operation of cannabis businesses within 1,000 feet of a school, 500 feet of a daycare, residential treatment facility, or other attraction within a public park that is regularly used by minors, including playgrounds and athletic fields. The city generally considers the entire park boundary as regularly used by minors. Therefore, the park boundaries were used to identify buffer areas within the maps that we're going to show you here. So we have a key here of all both parks, daycares, and schools. So the daycares are in the light blue, squares, parks in green, and then schools in that kind of yellow-orange color. And you can see that covers a fairly large portion of the city of New Ulm when you start to add those buffers up. So this map is busy. And
Can I ask a quick question? What happens if they go into one of the spots where they fit and then a daycare decides to open up?
right, so
Next
that's a great
door.
question. It actually, the daycare would have to take that into consideration. We wouldn't force the cannabis
Okay.
business to move.
Okay.
Good question. This map is just like that previous map, but we took the buffers off and we took some of those labels off. And you can see in those, the red areas are commercial districts. The blue areas would be industrial. That purple area in the middle is our B4 or downtown zoning district where this could potentially be allowed. And then on the south side, again, we have both industrial and commercial districts where it would meet these buffer guidelines where the planning commission could consider permitting or regulating the different types of cannabis uses, businesses. The state Office of Cannabis Management, it's often referred to as OCM, has provided some guidelines to local governments, of which we pulled almost all of our information from to provide to you today. But one thing they did provide in some of their guidance was this table that you see right here. And what they're trying to show you is that the endorsed activity we refer to as in New Ulm as the use. And what they're trying to show is where are those uses, defined uses, typically allowed, or what type of zoning districts would you maybe consider them in your community? So this just provides some guidance for the Planning Commission to take a look at. This is sort of a repeat, a little bit of a repeat. I would note that there are compliance checks on cannabis or hemp business holding a retail registration at least once per calendar year. So there are checks on that. So proposed zoning uses in New Ulm. The Office of Cannabis Management recommends that cannabis product be zoned similarly to alcohol and production and sales. So in general, the city allows for sales of alcohol in all business, production in industrial, and production with sales as conditional use permits in the industrial district. I would also note that we've done something similar for like a brew pub, for instance. You can produce on site, sell on site in the downtown area or commercial districts. This zoning pattern would seem like it would also work well for the production and sales of cannabis products in the city of New Ulm. The definitions that we provided here are identical, or what we're trying to do is mirror those definitions that we provided in the beginning of this presentation. We've also taken a look at a number of different zoning ordinances or proposed zoning ordinances to make sure that these definitions are in line with what other communities are doing as well. So we would like to actually define all of these terms in the zoning ordinance once we get to that part. And this table I just pulled our use table from our zoning ordinance, and then filled in where we allow these different types of alcohol use types up on top, so we can see where we allow those types of things or conditionally allow those types of things. And then I put the different types of cannabis, potential cannabis businesses or uses below and in italics on the left-hand side. And then filled in just a few places where these things could be considered permitted or conditionally permitted. Now, one thing that I would note about this table, I have nothing in the B4 zoning district. Prior to that, we were taking a look at 2 locations downtown and whether or not they met the definition to require a buffer. Okay? And when this went out to the Planning Commission, we hadn't fully vetted those and found out that the 2 that we were discussing didn't qualify as a school and didn't qualify as an inpatient treatment facility. So we removed those from the map, but we didn't change that table yet. So that's for the Planning Commission to provide some guidance on. You can see we want to put cannabis manufacturing in industrial areas. Same with hemp manufacture and wholesale. Cannabis retail, we considered maybe permitting that in the B2 and B3, and now potentially the B4, and then conditionally permitted in industrial districts, and then transportation and or delivery as permitted in the I2. Sorry, go ahead.
Brew pub.
A brew pub, think of like a microbrewery. Where
That was
they're,
one of those biking things that are mobile.
well, yeah. No, a brew pub they produce on site and they sell on site.
Okay, so it's staying on spot. Okay.
Wouldn't Black Cross be that type of operation where you can buy and it's produced there?
That would be a distillery micro, wouldn't it, though?
Yeah.
Right, but they allow that. So actually, Shell's Brewery right now has essentially a brew pub. They sell on site products that they produce on the site.
Any of those pop-up microbreweries are pretty much, yeah. I think the closest one is probably Sleepy. I don't.
Yeah, Sleepy Eye and Medelia both have small breweries where they're both doing production and serving on site.
Okay.
Could you, for my benefit, and probably someone else's, I don't know, go back to the map and so I can thoroughly understand where B4 and B2 and B3, so. And just
So let
point
me-
out the areas for me, please.
Bright red
Yes,
in here. Bright red is B3.
okay.
That's our along the highway commercial district. B2, there's a little bit right here. There's also more B2 on north end, kind of where former Dairy Mark. Those areas. This is 7th North.
Okay,
And there's a B2 area where fall outside of those buffer areas. This in the purple would be the B4 or the downtown business district, where outside of those buffer areas. Then as you go Center Street west, there's also a
okay.
there as well. Down here, this is B3 commercial, and then the dark blue is I-2, so general industrial, and then the light blue is I-1, plain industrial.
Okay.
And again, this map shows those areas where there's potential for locating these businesses outside of the buffer.
So if I was going to open a shop in the business district downtown, how is that not buffered? Because there's a park downtown.
You're talking about
Yeah,
Kiesling House?
not necessarily Keesing House. Well, that's part of it, but there's also another little park towards the alley. Is it on?
Oh, behind the chamber?
Yeah. With the little toys.
That's
things.
not a park.
Yeah.
That's not a designated park.
It's not designated. It has
No.
park equipment in it.
Yeah, but it's
It's not a city park.
not a
Okay.
city park.
The Kiesling House was included in this buffer map.
Okay.
And German Park was, and the
Okay.
BMX track and skate park.
Yes.
So that's why it's shortened down there for the purple for the downtown district.
Okay.
Correct.
What about Ulm Sweet Ulm as I mean, it's right by Kiesling, so is that considered a school with the classes they have in Ulm Sweet Ulm?
Good question. So all of the buffers that we created for this map, we went on the state of Minnesota's website and determined whether or not they're an accredited school or
Okay.
a school that way. Same thing goes for daycares and residential treatment facilities. We tried to cross-verify that with how they're licensed from the state of Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, I would note that we used the definitions in, at least like for school, that was in our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So I can understand where cannabis cultivation, we might suggest putting it. I understand outdoors, AOS. How much space does it take to do a retail amount of growth? I'm wondering why it is we limit indoors. Not that I want it to go everywhere, but I'm just wondering why we limit indoors to the AOS zoning district.
The growing operation.
Yeah. There's the two categories, there's the outdoors and the indoors, and I understand the outdoors, why it would be AOS. I'm just trying to figure out why indoors would be AOS only as well.
Great question. I think this is just staff putting things up here, but I think we were basically just trying to say the growing operation should be in the AOS, whether it's indoors or outdoors.
Okay.
Now, again, tonight is simply for discussion purposes, so we're all have a better idea of what's coming down the pike here. We are going to have that special meeting that you should have all been notified about. I hope you were notified about that on February 13th at 5 o'clock p.m., in which we'll be here, 5 o'clock p.m., in which we'll be actually taking a look at drafted ordinance. And that should be the only item on the agenda for that night, theoretically.
Are there any questions on this part before we move to the second half?
Well, if you wouldn't mind,
Go ahead.
provide staff with some guidance on what you think we should do in the B4, or is it
Is
something?
there something unique that other communities are doing in the B4 that you can think of? Or that's like hours of operation, or where they can,
I don't think many people are
kind of new to
limiting.
this.
Right, exactly. Everybody in the state is. So it's, I don't think many folks are limiting the hours of operations. They're kind of viewing that similar to like you would a bar or an establishment that can sell alcohol. One thing, since this is new, the planning commission could consider something like a conditional use type permit rather than outright permitting it. So you can have a further review process.
Like an interim permit?
I would not probably suggest an interim permit for the sole purpose that they're already in a district where they're allowed to do retail.
Okay.
Right.
How do you mean? So if I put in all the money to start a business, we could then pull it back from them and say, at a later date, we're taking this back?
No, I'm saying with a conditional use permit, it sticks with the property.
Okay.
Interim use permit is for a specified duration and time, 5 years, and then you can do another 5 years.
Yep, got it. Okay, thank you.
Now, but with it, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've gone back through this conditional use permit, it stays with the property, so, I mean, 100 years from now, you could not be growing for 100 years, but somebody else could come in then 100 years from now, and because that property was once designated for that purpose, they could again.
If it stays the same, I mean, if someone came along and decided that this commercial district should now be an industrial district and that use is no longer permitted there, it would be, you know, there's a legally non-conforming for an existing business, but once
It's
that
there.
business ends, then you'd have to abide by the current zoning requirements. So that statement is true if the zoning stays the same.
Stays the same, correct, okay.
Have you had much in terms of community questions or people that are interested in opening something or?
We've had a few people inquire. We've also had, I think it's a national type of company that's asked us multiple times on where we're at with our zoning regulations or citywide regulations.
Because they want to come in?
I think they're just gathering information.
Is there a regulation that we have to have an ordinance by a certain time, like through state statute or anything?
I don't know that there's an ordinance that states that we have to have that, but they're going to start issuing licenses here. Can you-
Thank you.
So the state decided to change on how they're doing some of the things with the micro grows. They've notified 162 different businesses of intent to give them their license, but there's still a review period on the rules. They're updating the rules and changing them because it's just a lot with everything in it. So yeah, people will be able to produce and open a retail place mid-March, end of March, if any of the social equity people wanted to come into this area. So I don't know, what would you do if there isn't any ordinances? That's a good question.
That's a good question. That would be a council decision, and they probably should make that decision on what they want to do if they don't have an ordinance adopted by then. Because in all reality here, we're talking about, first of all, February 13th. Let's say all things went really well, and there was a recommendation to the city council that could go to the second council meeting in February. There would be the first reading. If they agree with everything there, then there is a 30-day period, or sorry.
You'd have to have second consideration.
You'd have to have a second consideration, and then it's not adopted till 30 days after that. So you're probably looking at a minimum of,
April
Right.
1st, sometime in there.
so the
I
council
think
would,
that's optimistic,
right.
Yeah, that's assuming everything goes well.
yeah.
Do we know if there's some cities that are ahead of us, already have this in place, already have a business taking off? Yeah. And
I don't know about the business taking off part, but there are a number of cities that have the cannabis zoning regulations or licensing options in place.
they don't have a business in place yet, so we could go back and check with them and ask them if they made any mistakes or want to change anything.
I don't know that there are.
I don't think they can until they have businesses that have been registered by the
And
state
licensed.
and license
Right, right.
issued. And it sounds like that hasn't taken place yet.
Do folks who want to set up a new bar, is that use conditionally permitted, or is that an outright permitted use in certain zoning districts?
It's an outright permitted use in certain zoning districts, provided if they're going to do manufacturing of products and sell it at the bar,
All right,
then it's typically conditionally permitted.
okay.
And the reasoning for not doing any growing in I-1, 2, or 3?
We just, I guess, from staff's opinion, it's the AOS, the larger parcels, that would be the setting for that. But we're open to discussion with the planning commission on providing any recommendations on that.
Is there a lot of interest in the cultivation, or is it more the retail end that there is the interest?
I would say there's a lot of interest in both.
In both?
Yeah, like, so for us, we're gonna be using a 23,000 square foot facility to produce, and we will, with our figures, like, if we had a location in New Ulm, we produce a little extra, so that we'd probably be, if there was another dispensary in town, try to work with them to sell it.
So essentially, you'd cultivate someplace else and
Yes,
retail
our
here.
intent is to cultivate in Lafayette and just purely do the retail. We're gonna look into doing cultivation, manufacturing,
Okay.
and whatnot.
Outside versus inside.
Oh, producing outside versus inside, there are
You step a
definitely.
little bit closer to the
Sorry.
microphone, please.
Producing
Thank-
outside versus inside, like, so for us, we are trying to get a micro, so that allows for 5,000 square foot of maturing flower. If we went outside, that is up to half an acre that you can use, so 22,000 some square foot of outside grow. But you can, greenhouses and hoop barns are also considered outside grows, just so you're aware. You want to climate control and when you're producing this, because they are bioaccumulators. So if Bob down the street, someone's growing outside and Bob down the street sprays pesticide to kill mosquitoes, he could kill off the entire crop. Or not kill it off, but poison it.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Glenn means by that is that his products have to be tested before they're sold at a retail setting, and that could show up in the testing results, not allowing them to sell it.
Yeah. Each plant is actually tracked. So they're tracked at first in a group of 100, and then once they be at 8 inches tall, then each plant is tracked all the way to sale. How much you get out of each plant, and you have to take tests off of everything. It's pretty extensive. It'd be a lot easier to have a distillery, tell you that.
Maybe.
Sounds really expensive. You think that there'll be enough of a interest in purchasing?
In New Ulm, with estimates, I'm gonna guess when it's legal and people, like, the amount of people that admit to using marijuana, go to dispensaries. If you do some math, it's roughly 50,000 a week in New Ulm plus in
I would
cannabis
say
sales.
yes. I would agree, say yes.
If not even higher than that.
There will be people, yes.
It just sounds so expensive, like your cost is gonna have to
Oh,
be-
yeah, and we can't write anything off of taxes either.
So, and I want to clarify back to what's on sale. You're selling edibles, plants?
Our intent, I don't think, would be to sell plants. We've not had discussions for that.
Okay, so it's edibles. Are you distilling, and we were talking liquids too?
Yeah, liquid is a possibility that we would do our own distilling.
okay.
We can also purchase from outside and have it
Outside,
in.
yeah.
You can
Because
get,
that's becoming a really big development.
yeah,
part of the
it's like
business.
B&L sells them, I know for a fact, and you can get them at most of the liquor stores.
Yeah.
And you can get gummies from gas stations.
Right, right. Okay. And you're not doing medicinal sales, or you are doing medicinal sales?
No, we will not be doing this medicinal sales. That's,
Okay.
that's
Very
even-
well controlled, yeah.
Yes.
Already, okay.
On-site consumption would be like a stage down the road. Most of it would be for home,
Homegrown, okay.
basically off.
Yeah, off sale.
Did you want a little direction from us on whether we as a commission think that outright permitting versus conditional permitting is our desire? Or is that for some time, or is that for the special meeting?
It would be my preference that we would get at least some direction today. So when we have a draft ordinance coming to you on February 13th, we would have those regulations in place. You can change them at that time, but at least have something here for not only you to look at, but the public to look at when this goes to, a public hearing.
What's the difference between this and the CBD oil places?
Like, so like, just like getting CBD oil you're talking about?
Yeah, what's
So
the
CBD oil is naturally a product of a cannabis plant. Most CBD comes from hemp. But that's regulated for that. Like a hemp plant can only have 0.3% THC in it, where a cannabis plant can have up to 30%. And there's various extraction processes you can do to get CBD and versus THC and the type of THC and whatnot.
Thank you.
Well, I might just be brave enough to start the discussion on conditional use permit versus permit. I think personally, since it's so new and since we're all trying to find our way, I think it might be beneficial to the city to start out as a conditionally permitted use. It gives us a little more control. We can look at things again easier than if it was just outright permitted. I think it gives us a little more flexibility in growing into the business.
That's where I asked about our interim one, you know, 'cause then we can kind of use it as a tool and review it every couple of years or 5 years, and it's not tagged for the life of the property perhaps, or,
But a conditional use permit is tagged for the life of the property, is it not?
I would be, and I'm not in the cannabis business, but I would kind of echo at least the thought process. This is a very expensive business endeavor to get into now. That's not to say whether that should be conditional or not, but to not know that you're allowed to do this for more than a period of 10 years, I think would be potentially a hurdle you might not want to approach. So it's just something to consider.
Excuse me, go ahead. Please state your
Hi.
name and address.
Sarah Christensen, 18 Lincoln Lane. Through our business plan and some of the
Speak up
finance.
closer to the microphone,
Sorry.
please.
With our current business plan and some of the financing conversations we're having, we are actually looking to purchase a property. So in order to, make that come to fruition, we need to have some viability of a permitting future. So a conditional use would probably not look great to our investors as much as a permanent permit.
If I could just provide some clarification on that. So a permitted use would mean that there will be no additional steps for you to take. Just, you're allowed to do that. A conditional use would mean it's a permitted use with conditions. And that would stay with the life of the property as long as that use stays the same. Then there's an interim use permit, which is shorter in duration. It can be up to 5 years, and then it can go for another period of 5 years.
Great.
So those are the three different options.
Thank you for the clarity. Yeah.
I would also note, though, that with a permitted use, you could, as part of your ordinance, that could include conditions as well. For example, in our zoning ordinance, we have a requirement that, if you have a church, the building has to be 50 feet from any residential property line. So you can have those kind of requirements, in your ordinance.
Did that
I think
get you
it does,
anywhere?
Yeah, and for you folks, the conditional use permit also gives the city the opportunity to hold a public hearing. And I think since it's so in its infancy and there's a lot of information out there that might not be correct, public hearings probably aren't a bad thing. They get a little noisy, but it's not a bad thing.
is there any limit to how many, I don't know if you're going by pounds or weight or volume for material, for safe handling or storage needs, that, I'm just asking the question, is there?
Are you talking about like on-site storage?
Yeah.
Everything needs to be locked up every night, and everything is going to be in a child-proof container already. So there wouldn't be any issues with throwing things away or whatnot. So everything would be sealed, and there should not be any issues with that. No environmental issues at all.
So the city itself has gone and put the permitted and conditional uses just as targets, correct? And we are and you're asking us to say whether we agree, want to enhance or amend the already proposed area for you for guidance.
And again, there doesn't need to be a decision on that tonight. If you want to wait, that's an option too, but we will come on the 13th with a draft ordinance.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and ask you a question about some of the manufacturing. Because we're saying it's for, are you talking about doing all your manufacturing off-site? Where is all of this going to be? You do,
All of the manufacturing that we would do would all be in Lafayette. This would specifically, this area would just be a retail location.
okay, so, but you have the capabilities of doing all of it on-site in your Lafayette location?
Yes, yes.
So if I want to open my own plant and I want to do cultivation and I'm cultivating in an AOS area, we're just definitely saying that we cannot manufacture, according to this direction, we can't do any of the manufacturing in the basement of our retail business downtown. Because I don't know what it takes to
Right,
manufacture.
that's the way it's currently laid out.
That would be my recommendation. You don't want some of that manufacturing processes. You don't want it, you want it in an industrial area.
Well, yeah, that's because I don't know anything. That's what I'm asking, is
Well,
that
I think
kind
the
of thing you can't-
direction from the state was to,
Okay,
the sales area should be in retail, zoned areas, and the cultivation, the manufacturing should be in
Well-
industrial areas.
unless I'm distilling alcohol, I can distill it in the back room. If I'm doing, if we're talking microbrewery here,
Well, actually,
we are separating
a
that.
micro distillery is a conditional use permit in our commercial districts.
Okay, so that's conditional that's good to know. Okay,
If I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. Yep. In the B2, B3, and B4, it's all conditional use.
okay. I guess I'm only reading the bottom half. I'm not reading.
That's because that's the manufacturing portion of that distillery process. That's the reason it's a conditional use permit. If they were to just have a tap room and sell their spirits, that would be a permitted use.
So I'm to understand that it takes more to manufacture the products that they want to sell versus the manufacturing of a distillery, or that it's a more involved process for odor, whatever.
Yeah, essentially, like, if you're gonna do distilling, you would have to be, like, we're doing distilling, but we're in control of the product from it when it's a seed. So
Okay.
we have to take care of that and grow special varieties for special things.
Okay. So that, all right, I understand that now. I may look confused. If we decided at some point to say, it's all conditional, can we come back in a certain time period and say it's okay, it's all permitted areas?
Yeah, you could, if the council wanted to,
And
know,
essentially, there's,
change it to all being permitted by ordinance, you can do that.
and essentially, it has no effect on the people that are going downtown and establishing a business, buying a building. If it's conditional now, and they have no time limit on a conditional use permit, correct?
You mean in terms of hurting them for
Restrict-
financing and whatnot? Is that what you're asking?
So if I say a business downtown is conditional, is it going to affect how they finance it? Or
I would,
the things they do with their business?
that's up to the bank.
Yeah, that would be up to the bank on financing. It could. I mean, in all honesty, it could on a commercial loan,
Okay. So that we would be restricting them
possibly.
in that way. So any business that, in my opinion, we would want to have permitted then, if it's a business downtown for that reason. Okay.
Just for your information, there are some cities that are in front of us on this topic, and so we can see what they've done.
Okay.
Maybe get that out to you in advance of the meeting, so you can maybe
All right.
take a look at that.
That would be good. This is such a good start, but to try to get into the nitty gritty when we don't have anybody else that's gone ahead of us is pretty tough.
Well, you aren't going to really have anybody until they license people.
Yeah.
It's pretty tight, unless you're going up to the reservations. I think they're the only people now that are, and I haven't heard of any negatives coming off of that. But I guess I haven't really paid that much attention to it. I'm sorry.
But it's quite all right.
Yeah,
This is a very, it's new to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why we want to be here. We want to, everybody's learning on the go.
okay. Do you have enough direction from us? Do we want to go on to the cannabis and hemp business part, or is that all the same thing?
That was really just to provide to the planning commission and to the public that these are some of the direction from the city attorney's office. We basically covered all of that in the
In this
PowerPoint.
discussion?
In the PowerPoint, so.
Okay. This was not a brief discussion, and nor should it have been. But I'm looking at the clock and thinking we should probably move on. Does anyone have any objection to closing this portion of the meeting?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Joe, did you have a question? Nope. No, thank you. Thank you for being patient and answering our questions. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'm going to move on to the city decisions concerning the planning commission matters in December of 2024 and January of 2025.
Okay, we'll try to get through this quickly. December 3rd meeting, they approved the interim use permit request that was made by Holly and Justin Schaefer on behalf of Steve and Jennifer Hesse, and that was for the bakery business. John, do you know what the status is of that?
I tried to get in contact with Holly regarding where she's at, and I haven't heard back from her. I know she's had a couple pop-ups there, but as far as I understand, a building permit hasn't been pulled, so there hasn't been any interior remodeling or construction.
Okay. They also approved the simple lot division, 516 11th North Street. We're still waiting for the easement back on that, but we expect to receive that shortly. At the December 17th meeting, this is something that John has been involved in. They signed a purchase agreement, or the city council authorized the signature of a purchase agreement with Cassandra Cano and Dylan Scharfenkamp to buy the house that was at 320 North Broadway, and that is now at 1007 North Minnesota.
And I would just note on that, we're really close to the finish line on that and probably looking at a closing date in the next couple weeks.
What about where the property, where it moved from?
The 320 North Broadway property,
Yeah.
if I understand the city manager correctly, they're also in the process of finalizing a purchase agreement with let's call it a company to purchase that property.
At the same meeting, they approved an orderly annexation agreement with Milford Township, only for us to find out that we didn't do it properly, and so we have to go back and do it over. They also approved a citywide strategic plan at that meeting, and I think you've received that previously. And they approved a revised development agreement with Beaky LLC. That's for the Target property. So it was nice to get that finished. and recorded. At the January 7th meeting, they received the communication from M&D Properties, which is an LLC. It's Mike Crowell, Dale Bushard, and they requested the establishment of a tax abatement program for their project at 2229 North Highland Avenue. They're doing an 8-plex townhome project. And council authorized staff to look at that. And then at the January 21st meeting, we came back with a recommendation to establish a 10-year tax abatement program. And my recollection is that the amount of assistance would be roughly $9,900 per year for 10 years. That's 99. That's it.
Heritage Preservation Commission.
We had a quick meeting to go over gather some information on the SHPO conference coming in September on what type of tours and stuff they wanted to go with. That's all we had.
Oh, good, thank you. I have one last item. I would like to thank Kate Mako for her service. Hopefully she's listening. We didn't have a December meeting, so we could properly send her off. But she did a great job, and I, for one, will miss her. And I hope she's enjoying retirement. Is there any other business to come? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you.